people are always like, you need to accept the fact that your brother's dead. I've accepted that. What I'm not going to accept is the part that all these people are getting away with, like, basically murdering him.
4 years later, a Mid-Michigan family still on the search for answers and justice. Their loved one dead following a crash New Year's Day 2017. The Sanilac County Sheriff's Office says Andy Kautz drove drunk and crashed his own truck. But his family says that's not the case, and they believe there are others responsible for his death. In an ABC 12 investigation, our Ann Perrette shows us the evidence his family found and why a veteran investigator says police got it wrong.
Andy Kautz family says they have proof that shows he wasn't in the driver's seat and that another car was involved in the crash that killed him. But the people they need to listen say the case is already closed.
I have to say, he was too trusting. Yeah. He would help anyone and then also maybe end up in a situation, obviously, with people he shouldn't be.
Their son, Andy Kautz, would have celebrated his 30th birthday this year, but he died 4 years ago today, following a night of partying with friends on New Year's Eve in Sanilac County. Police say his pickup truck crashed just after 2 a.m. on New Year's Day. Records show no one ever called 911. Andy died 7 days later. His sister, Heather Blaine, believes there's more to the story that's not being told.
The last thing I said to my brother is, like, I'll see you again, and I will find out what happened to you.
Deputies report getting to the crash site around 4 a.m. on Freiberger Road in Argyle Township. The report says Andy's truck rolled multiple times. It was the only vehicle involved, and he was behind the wheel. A passenger in the truck was injured. Alcohol is listed as a factor, but there was no on-scene investigation. The report shows they'd called someone to reconstruct the scene, a must in most serious car crashes, but as it's stated, they were unavailable to respond.
He's known as, like, the kid that drank and drove on New Year's Eve and died. Like, people don't know the rest of this story or what kind of, like, hell that we've been through.
The police report says friends rolled up to the scene and took Andy to Mackenzie Hospital in Sandusky. It's a quick drive, but Andy wasn't rushed there. In fact, witness statements reveal these friends didn't bring him inside the hospital right away. A nurse spotted Andy in the back seat of their pickup truck outside the hospital, and that was the first time police were notified of the accident.
Had one of them just called 911, our son would have had a chance. And he'd be here maybe with us now. But they didn't even care enough to do that.
Andy's family became suspicious as explanations from friends and investigators weren't adding up, so they took matters into their own hands.
It reeks of a cover-up. It reeks.
They hired retired MSP accident reconstructionist Tim Brown in August 2017. He took one look at the Sanilac County Sheriff's accident report and knew something wasn't right.
The tire path of the pickup truck that Andy was in and where it was leading to when it went off the left side of the road, well, that immediately raised a red flag to me.
Within seconds of looking at Andy's truck, Brown determined from marks on the passenger side, someone ran him off the road.
It's clearly evidence of something that was spinning when it hit it.
They thought there was no saving him, and they didn't want to get in trouble.
After talking to people in town, reading through legal papers, and hiring detectives, here's what his sister put together. The people in the truck she believes ran Andy off the road called the parents of the other person in Andy's truck. They got him to the hospital. In the meantime, she thinks they moved Andy to the back seat of the truck that hit him and left him there injured while they left to go figure out their story. Only then, Blaine says, did they take Andy to the hospital.
He bled to death. Andy is dead because he had 2 strokes because he lost so much blood. So his blood would be at that scene, right? Unless he was put somewhere else. This is the back of the vehicle that was involved. What do you think that is? And do you think the cops would test that substance? Nope.
So how did she get this picture, and how did they find that truck? Not only did Blaine know who was at the parties her brother went to on New Year's Eve, but she also took note of that truck when she saw it in a driveway just weeks after the crash.
It was jacked up in the front with front end damage, sitting outside. and then it disappeared.
The family finally tracked it down in a Sanilac County scrapyard more than a year later. That's when these photos were taken. Brown says it's a perfect match.
I found evidence that clearly hadn't been addressed or been looked at by law enforcement that said this vehicle tangled with another vehicle. There looked like there was some playing cat and mouse going on, and it got a little out of hand and resulted in one of them going out of control and into a field and killing Andy.
He showed me that evidence.
If you look, you can see the red paint transfer. See right here, you can see it in the sidewall, you see it right here on the wheel. And that's a steel or magnesium wheel, and certainly capable of causing that type of damage in these type of marks.
Remember, police concluded Andy was driving, but Brown says when you look at the crash, there's no doubt Andy, who was ejected from the truck, was in the passenger seat that night.
When you look at the vehicle and you see the way the occupant cage was compromised, the driver's not going anywhere. And that roof comes down on top of him. He's there to stay for the most part.
People are always like, you need to accept the fact that your brother's dead. I've accepted that. What I'm not going to accept is the part that all these people are getting away with, like, basically murdering him.
Andy's family has taken all of these findings to the sheriff's office and prosecutor in Sanilac County, but they maintain Andy was the driver. In June 2017, the sheriff told the local newspaper his office did pursue charges against the supposed passenger for letting Andy drive drunk and the people believed to have showed up afterwards for tampering with evidence. The prosecutor, Jim Young, denied those charges based off DNA, dozens of witness statements, and investigators' reports. He concluded it was a terrible tragedy. I asked the sheriff for a comment. He said he wouldn't because the case has been closed. The prosecutor-elect says even after the office reviewed some of this new information, no additional investigation is necessary.
I just can't believe that they would refuse to do their job. And it's obvious to me that it's either covering up some mistakes or maybe they're covering up for someone.
Andy's parents tell me they won't stop pushing to hold those believed involved criminally responsible. Andy's supposed passenger admits in his witness statement he was driving Andy's truck at one point that night, but not at the time of the crash. Andy's family still has several civil cases playing out in court. I'm Ann Perrette, ABC 12 News.
Now your ABC